Well done. When I was in second grade, I had a friend named Doug, which is one of my favorite names to say. And Doug one day told me that he played soccer. And at that age, I was like 6 or 7. I don't know why, but I was convinced that little kids can't play sports. You can like play in your yard, but kids don't have teams. And so I didn't believe Doug. And so then I asked his mom, which in hindsight feels really insulting. And Doug, I apologize. But his mom was like, yeah, he plays soccer. And then so I was like, Mom, Doug plays soccer. Can I play soccer? And she was like, sure. So I went and played. I signed up for this team and went and played. And it was this whole new world of experience that was open to me. And I got to go on a field, and it was like marked out, and there were little goals, and we had little uniforms, and we had the little shin pads, and we kicked it. And the referee was like, stop kicking other kids. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then, like we just played, and then I would kick something, and then you'd hear these people like, go Nathan. And I was like, what is this? And it was these like magical moments. Now, I got to middle school. I went to Riverside Middle School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I played basketball, and our rival school was Westwood Middle School. Westwood Middle School was really, really good. And everybody in the city knew that they were going to win every year for some reason. So our physical education teacher was also our basketball coach, and he stood up at school assembly and encouraged everybody, all the students, to come to the game after school. We're playing Westwood on Friday. Come to the game. Cheer your team on. So, gets to Friday. We go out on the court. We start warming up. And then Westwood Middle School comes out of our locker room. And our whole school starts booing. Just boo, boo. And we were warming up, and it was this weird feeling like, whoa, like the enemy has stepped into the room, right? And then I'll always remember it. Our PE teacher turns around to the crowd, and he says, no. We don't boo. You're here to support us. We're not booing other people. So cheer, yell, clap, but we don't boo. And as a kid, I was like, whatever. So like we kept playing. Now this game was a really good game. It was back and forth the whole way. We were supposed to just get creamed by this team, but there was something going on where we were pumped. We came ready to play, and in the fourth quarter, it was just back and forth. We would go up by 1, we would score a basket, then they would go down, they would score a basket, go up by 1, back and forth. 10 seconds left in the game. They're down by 1, they take a shot, they make it. As soon as they make it, one of my teammates is sprinting down the floor. Our guy grabs the ball, just turns, clock's counting down, he just chucks it, falls right into his hands, and he goes up, hits the backboard, hits the outside of the rim, falls off. We lost the game by 1. My friend hits that, and then it's like a middle school gym, so the cement wall is like right there, and he's running full pace into it. So he goes a layup and then smashes into this cement wall. And then we don't know if he's sad because he missed or he's unconscious because of the wall. We're not sure. But he goes down like this. Now, one of my best friends from primary school was on the Westwood team, and he just so happened to be the defender chasing this kid down. So he's there too. He grabs the ball, and you can just see this relief. Now, the crowd had been going crazy, and there was just the full stands just goes, oh, as the ball misses. There's this like deflation in the room, and my friend Mike, I run down the court to see if my teammate's dead. Check on him. No, not dead. And then I turn to my friend Mike, and Mike just looks at me and goes, that was fun. So I said, Mike, that was fun for you because you won. And then I walked off. Me and Mike talked about that like 10 years later. I will never forget that scene. I then went to high school, and I was never a tall person. All the All the short people are clapping right now. He's one of us. Yeah, we just, we got a lot to look up to. And so I got into high school, and high school is just a different ballgame. I walk into the gym because I want to try out for the basketball team. There's not a single person under 6 foot tall. So, and I didn't want anybody to know I was in the gym, so I did what we're all supposed to do, and I went. All right, remember? That's the rule. If you ever want to sneak out of a room, you just do that. No one will know you were there. I decided to go find a sport where I didn't need to be tall, so I went and played ice hockey. You just had to be willing to get hit. That was the only criteria. Stand on the ice, get hit real hard. So I played ice hockey. My junior year, we made it to the regional championship game. And the stadium held maybe 1,000 people. It wasn't a massive stadium, but the stands were like steel. All right, so it's cold, it's an ice arena, it's steel. So they were so loud. And in this state championship game, it was standing room only in the crowd, and it was just so loud. And we came out of the locker room. We're on the ice is in the middle. The locker rooms are here. The stands are there on the other side of the ice. We came out of the locker room, and as both teams came out, there was just this like, and just the stands are going crazy. Everybody's cheering. And we were just like, what is happening? And we just got pumped. Now, again, we weren't supposed to compete with the team that we weren't supposed to be in the championship. We were not an ice hockey school. We weren't supposed to be there. We got there, and we played our hearts out. We lost. We were huge underdogs, but we stuck with them the whole way. And there was just something different. And I'll never forget that experience. I'll never forget the first time I was pumped up because this crowd was going crazy. And I saw this huge defenseman. He was so big, all right? And then I just was like, I'm going to hit him. I'm going to give him heaps. So I just went full beans right at him. And I was like, ah, and I went and hit him. I got decked. And so he just goes, boo, and I'm just like, boo. And then I hear him go, oh, and I was like, I don't know what happened. So I like get up, and I skate back to the bench. My coach goes, how'd that go? And I was like, shut up, coach. All right, leave me alone. I'm little, okay? And he was like, no, good on ya. We'll call the hospital. But what ended up happening is as I got decked, I accidentally kicked the guy in the groin. Last time he hit me, isn't it? He learned his lesson. I went up to him because for the rest of the game, he was like, he's just skating a bit funny. And I went up to him, I was like, hey, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's my fault. I was like, sure is. So we've just gone through Acts, and I think there's this question we have to ask ourselves of, when you walk through a book of the Bible and you walk through a historical account, what if it was different? All right, you walk through that stuff and you're just like, we're reading this story, we're hearing this narrative. What if things had happened differently is a question I like to ask. What would the world have looked like then? What would the world look like now if things were different? And the primary question that the book of Acts makes us ask is, would we have accepted what was being presented? So we have the start of Acts with the ascension of Jesus, which is the Bible's theological way of announcing that this was special. All right, whenever we're reading a part of the Bible and it talks about someone ascending to heaven, that is a clear sign that there was something holy about this. So Jesus ascending to heaven, and that being the first story told in the book of Acts, is supposed to clarify for us that this was legitimate. All right, and then we have just a series of things. We have the Holy Spirit coming at Pentecost, which what we're supposed to take from that is there is a new thing happening, because up till that point, the belief was God sleeps at the temple. God lives at the temple. God is behind the curtain. That's where God exists. The story of Pentecost is supposed to communicate to you that that's not true anymore. there's something different, because these people were not praying at the temple. They were praying somewhere else, as per their custom, and then God invaded. And we know the stories. We've spent all year talking through them. What happens, Peter addressing the crowd. And I think, Deborah, for your question of like what happened next after Acts, well, this is their question, like what happens next after Jesus? And what's next is, well, I don't know, like thousands of people changing the way they live. And then we hear these narratives of the way that fellowship worked, the way they shared together. It's a highlight of there's all these old customs that didn't actually just disappear. They kind of kept doing what they'd always done, but there was something that felt different about it. And it's these questions people ask of, well, if there's a new thing, how do we know that it's as good as the old thing? And that's what Luke lays out. People being healed, people being generous. It's the values of what God's people are supposed to be like. And it's just story after story of, here's what we saw. We saw proof, we saw encouragement, we saw a new way that's actually just kind of the old way, but with a different attitude. Even to the point where it's just like, well, then just the believers began to just share their possessions as a fulfillment of Jubilee theology that never came about under the old law. It's just all this stuff that the people had been like crying out for. God, send this revival, send this renewal, send this Jubilee, send this help. He did. It happened. We read it. The people experienced it. But then we come to this, like, Luke does a great job of painting this clash, because there's all of a sudden this new way, but it's still tainted with the old mindset. That's the Ananias and Sapphira story. What that's supposed to tell us is God is on the move in the way he's always promised to be on the move, and you can either accept it and live like it's supposed to live, or you can still play this weird game. So that's what they did. Didn't turn out well. And then we have more examples of the apostles healing. And then we have stories of the apostles being persecuted, rounded up, rejected. We have examples of, the choosing of like the seven, the choosing of the elders. And that's an example of, look, there was always a structure involved. There was always stuff that went on. This isn't actually a new thing. It's just an unfamiliar one. This is how the old way was always supposed to be. Stephen is seized. Stephen has his speech. It's met with a loud, resounding boo. Then the stoning of Stephen, a louder, more resounding boo. The church is persecuted and scattered, and then we see this shift, because all of a sudden it's Philip going to Samaria and the Samaritans accepting it. So the church is scattered and all this stuff, and we see more of the move of God, this time with the wrong people. God wasn't supposed to deal with them. And then we see Philip with an Ethiopian. That's the wrong people. God, this is not done right. You're doing it wrong. All right, and then we have story after story after story of God just continues to move. He just continues to do what he always promised to do. And there's an acceptance, and there's a rejection, and there's the people that go, look, it's a new thing, and the other people go, yeah, that's a bad thing. And it's story after story of that playing out. But Saul and Peter, they just kept going to the synagogues. There was the moment with, there was a moment of healing in these stories that are highlighting that, hey, this is just the same stuff Jesus did. Like Saul says to one of them, pick up your mat and go. And then he raises a woman from the dead. Like, these are mirrors of what Jesus did. And remember, we've already had this, like Jesus ascending, this is legitimate. And we see it just carrying on. And every way is acceptance, rejection. We have Cornelius calling for Peter. Cornelius is a Roman. He's a Gentile. We have Peter's vision of clean food. Don't call what I have given you unclean. Peter having to go, God, this is what I've known my whole life. And God going, I know. I get that. Don't call what I have given you unclean. Okay. And then he goes, Peter, I need you to go to some Gentiles. And he goes, but those people are unclean. And God goes, what did we just talk about? And the church kept spreading, and the word kept spreading, and the persecution kept going. Story after story of just God on the move. Acceptance, rejection, proof, work, miracles. Acceptance, rejection, proof, work. There's a council at Jerusalem where the church at the time gets together and finally goes, maybe we need to change a little bit. And what are we willing to risk? That's the conversation they had. What are we willing to risk to allow this change to happen? Now, to God, it's like him being a parent and giving you an instruction, and the kids all get together and go, what are we willing to allow here? There's Timothy, there's Barnabas, there's Paul's vision, there's Lydia's conversion, there's Paul and Silas in prison, there's Thessalonica, there's Berea, there's Athens, there's Corinth, there's the spreading and spreading and spreading. And what you have to ask yourself is, the people that earlier rejected this in the story, have they decided that the work is done, the work is finished? Well, God's done. I've heard it too. The Acts of the Apostles, that was the finish. That was God being done. Everything you have ever stopped looking for is finished for you. Everything you have ever decided is done and you've stopped seeking is gone to you. Wayne Gretzky said, 100% of the shots you don't take won't go in. American sports I find fascinating. Philadelphia is one of the roughest cities in America. It's one of the first cities. So Philadelphia is where the Declaration of Independence was signed. It was one of the original colonies. It's got a lot of history. It's also just one of the toughest towns to be an athlete in. So if you're an athlete for one of the Philadelphia teams, that fan base is ruthless. All right, they will boo you out of a stadium. All right, there's Philadelphia 76ers went through a few years where they were just the worst team. It was every home game was just 48 minutes of booing. It's pretty rough. All right, there's a baseball player who signed for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he was going through a bit of a rough patch. He was not playing well, and so he's in Philly, so he starts getting booed. And in baseball, when it's your turn to bat, you've got to come up out of the dugout in front of 60,000 fans. Baseball season's 160 games. You got to do this 80 times. 80 times, 4 or 5 at-bats every game. He comes out of the dugout to 60,000 people. Boo! Every time the ball gets hit to him and he doesn't make the right play, just 60,000 people. Boo! Just getting hammered. All right, this guy's got to come. Imagine going to work. Imagine every day you got to go to work knowing as soon as you step through those doors, boo. I mean, Chris Jenkins, that's every classroom he's ever walked in. So it's, hey, students, boo. Okay. But imagine how you'd feel. Yeah, like pretty rough. So he gets worse and worse and worse. Plays worse and worse and worse. Batting average is the worst it's ever been in his whole career. He's making all sorts of errors. He's not finishing plays, not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So the crowd just boo. And then one day, like the captain of the Phillies fan club posts on social media, and he's like, hey guys, this whole booing thing's not working. So we might try something different. What we're going to do is we're just going to start giving him a standing ovation. Every time he comes out of the dugout, we're just going to all stand up, all 60,000 of us, and we're going to clap. So he goes to work. It's his turn to get up to the plate and bat. He's probably just trying to figure out if he can run away at this point. He comes out of the dugout. 60,000 people start to stand up and applaud. Now he's confused because he's just had a whole month of relentless booing. And he steps up to the plate and the crowd is cheering and it's standing. And he's looking around and he has his at-bat. And he goes back to the dugout. Crowd sits down. Then he goes out and plays defense. Ball gets hit to him. He makes the play. Crowd stands and cheers. Then his next at bat, he comes out. Standing ovation. 60,000 people. Now, by the end of that game, it just so happened that he had a chance to, if he gets a hit, his team wins the game. Crowd cheering, 60,000 people, standing ovation. He makes contact, beats the ball to first base. His teammate comes home. They win the game. He then goes on to have one of the best statistical months of his entire career. Because every time he was at home, every time he came out of the dugout, the fans would stand and they would cheer. And nothing about his preparation, nothing about his skill set, nothing about anything that he was doing changed. But he had one of the worst months of his career and then had one of the best months of his career. The only difference was one was boos, one was cheers. And I assume that's how Paul would have felt heading to Jerusalem. Right? So he's heading to, this is my hometown. This is the team I play for. Right? He walks in, boo. He's in prison for 2 years, boo. After 2 years, he assumes most of those fans have probably forgotten about me. He stands up, boo. Nope, they didn't. But what would have happened if they did? Like, what would have been different about the book of Acts? What would have been different about what played out through history? If at all of those times, in all of those stories, if most people were just like, yeah, I accept. But why did they boo? Like, what were they booing about? What were they scared of? They were scared of God getting mad. Is this the thing that he smites us over? Is this the one thing that God gets mad about? They were scared that someone was going to talk about something in a way that God would get mad about. So they shut it down. They booed it. Let's get rid of it. No more. They were scared of losing what they understood, losing that space of safety. We've talked about it for 2 years. You sit where you sit because you haven't died there yet. All right? And every time you go to sit in a different seat, you have to go through the process. Is this the seat I die in? All right? And none of us say that out loud because it sounds silly, but that's why you sit where you sit. All right? That's why you drive where you drive. That's why you park where you park. That is why you sleep on the side of the bed you sleep on, because you've not yet died on that side of the bed. and it's comfortable and you know you're safe. And there was an entire people who were like, I'm pretty sure we figured out the things we have to do to make sure God doesn't smite us. And they never seemed to stop and ask, God, what are you up to? Where have you gone? What do you do? I was just last week told that we need a revival, and the reason we don't have a revival is because of unrepented sin. That's what I was told. Now, I will tell you, and you can believe it or not, you can accept it or not, I see revival every day here. But if I tell myself that it's done and God is done with us and it's unrepentant sin, will I see what I'm not looking for? No. If I decide God is done and we're not going to see it, I'm not going to see it. If I decide every time someone comes in and says, God has done something in my life and it doesn't fit within the rules that I understand, if I go, boo, no. Eventually God just goes, oh well. And what the book of Acts tells us is he will just carry on. And we will still be 60 years later, 2,000 years later going, I think God's done. So the difference between booing and cheering is commitment. It takes almost no commitment to sit and boo. Now, it's a false positive because we feel like we're participating. All right? I'm making a noise at least. I'm letting them know I don't like this. Okay? So it feels like participation. It's not. It's the most base level of participation. The difference between booing and cheering is standing and cheering is a level of commitment, and it's a belief that this is not just a team I'm watching, this is a team I'm on. And we are going to accomplish this. And the great sport franchises in the world have this understanding, and they all call it, so like if there's 11 players on a field, they call the crowd the 12th man. Because what they want everyone to understand is you are the team. And your standing and cheering makes that difference. And there's a reason that sports teams have home field advantage. It's because it's really hard to play in an environment where you are not being cheered. That Westwood team was supposed to kill us. And they came to Riverside, and we were loud and we were known. Like, it makes a difference. And if you have ever been in a situation where you've been cheered, it makes a difference. You feel it. And if you've ever been in a situation where you've been booed, it makes a difference. You feel it. And if we create a people, if we ourselves become a people who the biggest effort we're going to give is sitting and booing, what do we think we're going to get at the end of that? Rubbish. But imagine what happens if we become a people who choose to stand and cheer. Imagine what happens if we become a people who are curious rather than critical. Imagine what happens if we decide to become a people who at every opportunity will stand and cheer. That bus driver would have felt amazing. And that bus driver would have gone home a different person. And imagine if the Christian church was more known for what it encourages and what it celebrates and what it cheers on than what it doesn't like or what doesn't count or what's excommunicated or what it fears or what it won't let in or what's blasphemous or what's heretical. Imagine if we were more known as a standing and cheering people than a fearful booing people. Imagine what would happen. Imagine what would have happened in Acts if when God broke free from the temple and was like, I'm tired of sitting in here, I'm out. If we went with him. And we see it through Acts. There were moments where people went with him and what we saw was amazing. Imagine if everybody did. Imagine if everybody was like, okay, I guess this is where God's going. Bye, seat. I never need you again. And how often do we come here just hoping maybe God will move this morning? And what if God's just always been on the move? What if that is Acts? What if it's not the Acts of the Apostles? What if it's God got out, we didn't know what to do with that, boy, wasn't it fun? And what if it still can be, but if we don't look for revival, we don't see revival? We're going to get the music team to come up. And the challenge for us from Acts is, what if, would we have chosen differently than they did? Now, in every story, there's the acceptance side and the rejection side. Which side would we have been on? It's really important that you for yourself understand where your line is. Where would you have drawn that line? Read back through Acts. Where would you have drawn your line? Oh, no, that one's a bit too far. Why? Oh, because I'm uncomfortable. Okay, that makes sense. God's on the move, though. I have never, ever, once been comfortable on a roller coaster. And I'm pretty sure that's not the point of them. But if you like them, boy, are they fun. And I've never, ever gone for a hike or a bushwalk up a mountain and been comfortable doing it. And I don't really like heights, so when you get to the top, it feels a bit funny. They're not made for comfort, they're made for awe. We are not, what if we understand that we are not made to be a comfortable people? We are made to be an adventurous people. We are made to be a people of awe and wonder, and we are supposed to chase that God. We do not serve a dead and buried deity. But God is also not rude, and he will not force us to do anything that we don't want to do. And if our approach to what he's doing is that we sit and boo, that's up to us. But I would like to encourage us to be a standing ovation people. And so we're going to sing a song, and we're going to sing a song that's been a theme for us all year, Here and Now. And I'm going to invite you to sing it with everything you've got. I'm going to invite you to sing it as a prayer this morning. Really, really think about the words that we're singing. We want revival in this land. But do we want it bad enough to chase it and look for it? And when we get to the bridge, we're going to sing words about the walls coming down in this city. And we have to ask ourselves during that, are we willing to be the first ones through that wall? So I'm going to invite you to stand. We're going to sing this song. And I invite you to not just make it your prayer this morning, seek it out this morning, If you want to take a stand right here this morning, please feel free to come up. Let's show a commitment. If that's not you this morning, that's fine. We'll just talk about it next time. So God, we just come before you this morning as a people who, just every time we breathe in, breathing in what you have for us. And God, we don't want to pray an empty prayer of we seek revival in this land. We don't want to pray that as an empty prayer here this morning. We want to claim it and claim a desire to chase you where you go. God, help us to be a people that when we see it and it makes us feel uncomfortable, that we can be a people that actually just embrace the adventure of what that is. God, forgive us for all the times that we have decided that you're not doing much. And the repentance we push for this morning is the repentance of us insisting that you answer to us. And God, please don't let this year-long journey of going through Acts be a wasted one for us, God. Just embed in us this morning what you have for your people here in Whangarei. And as we pray and as we gather and as we share together, God, please just do your work in and amongst your people. Stir us up. Make us uncomfortable this morning. And help us to choose being a standing ovation people. So God, right now, we'll just make a token gesture to you and start this time of response by giving you a clap and a cheer and a standing ovation for all you've done, God, and for all you are yet to do.